These woke-scapalians or Episcopokians or whatever they're calling themselves today, this is ridiculous. This was terrible. Donald Trump, I'm sure, regrets participating in this event today, to be lectured to and politicized in a church this way. And I thought it was, frankly, a disgrace to what they did at this event. I don't know if this event will happen ever again because of this.
That's Republican Scott Jennings slamming Bishop of the Washington National Cathedral and self-righteous narcissist Miriam Buddy for turning a national prayer service into an opportunity to virtue signal about her misguided liberal politics. Welcome to Nerk News. I'm Nerkish, and it looks like it didn't take very long for legacy media to find its first terrible person to elevate as resistance leader for Trump's second term. This time it was a woke hypocrite who was eager to turn a prayer service into one of those self-righteous hate has no home here yard signs.
In the name of our God, I ask you to have mercy upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away.
You know, you can tell how sincere this bishop is because she immediately decided to double down on her position and do press tours on CNN, ABC, and MSNBC talking about how selfless and kind she is for thinking of others and being so brave for standing up for those groups in front of the president and vice president. Unfortunately for her, no rational person seems to be buying it.
Particular bishop took it upon herself to turn this into a complete and total circus and spectacle. And I don't know any Republican today who's like, oh, wow.
Well, it was a very long...
People are people. Laws are laws. I mean, she was asking him effectively to ignore the immigration laws of the country, which is, I guess, her political preference. And she's also asking him to ignore his own political and personal values, and also to ignore the vast majority of Americans who have a different point of view on these issues. I agree with you. It's her right to say that. I would just say, I think she did her church, which is different today than it used to be, no favors today. And I don't think she did her political causes any favors today in the way she handled it.
I will say that it's pretty funny that Democrats in the media who constantly bash religion and argue that it has no place near politics are suddenly willing to celebrate and elevate figures like her who mindlessly regurgitate the values of progressive pod people. I mean, this whole thing reminds me of that Aaron McIntyre quote circulating on Twitter about how progressivism hollows out religions to wear the skin like a trophy, which may sound morbid, but seems to be exactly what's happening here.
It was supposed to be a unifying and bipartisan church service in the beautiful National Cathedral here in Washington, D.C. And I was there with President Trump, and everybody there was shocked and mortified by the disturbing comments from this bishop who chose to weaponize the pulpit. She had an opportunity to pray over the president and the vice president and their families who are sitting in the first pews. And she spoke about truth, which was very ironic because words later she spewed lies. She said that President Trump has called illegal or immigrants criminals. That's not true. He calls illegal immigrants criminals because, in fact, they are criminals by definition. If you break our nation's laws, you are a criminal. She also talked about how LGBTQ people in this country may be disappointed. That's also a lie. In fact, I just saw Scott Jennings in the West Wing of the White House on his way to meet with President Trump, and he is the highest ranking LGBTQ official in United States history appointed by the president in the Oval Office right now. So the comments by that bishop yesterday were egregious, and she should, for the lies that she told. It's despicable.
You know, this isn't the first time this woman has twisted the word of God for her political agenda either. In 2020, when rioters had just set fire to her church, she was more than eager to go on establishment media and try to blame Trump for inciting the violence.
You told the Washington Post yesterday, and I'm quoting, everything this president has said and done is to inflame violence. We need moral leadership, and he's done everything to divide us. Is there any way to begin to heal this breach that you're describing?
The police officials and officers who are moving into the crowds to speak to them, the people who are acknowledging pain and seeking to make fundamental change for the good of the nation, and in particular for the safety and dignity of Black and brown people in this country. So yes, there are any number of steps that any one of us can make, including the president, to heal the breach. But it isn't by inflaming emotions. It's trying to bring them down and trying to offer a word of unity rather than division.
Explain why this is so painful for you.
Well, first of all, this is an excruciating moment, a crisis moment in our country where we need healing, where we need reconciliation, and we need justice. And the president, after speaking the remarks that you summarized and clearing with tear gas and riot-geared police the park and the courtyard of our church, stood in front of St. John's and held up a Bible as if it were spiritual validation and justification for a message that is antithetical to the teachings of Jesus and to the God of justice. And so I felt in no uncertain terms that I had to disassociate us from that symbolic gesture.
This is just one more example of the left wanting the appearance of a thing without actually wanting the thing itself. They like the appearance of the church and the good qualities of Christianity, but not the humility or sacrifice it requires. Because a lot of them are completely incapable of humbling themselves before anything greater than them. Their entire belief system is predicated on subjective moral standards and spitting in the face of reality. This female bishop obviously wasn't interested in seriously helping anything. She's just another Fauci who wanted to be famous and celebrated by the left.
And Bishop, given that we live in such a divided time as you've reflected on, and knowing how this message might be received by Trump supporters, I wonder if your words may have had more impact if they were shared one-on-one with the president, and was there an opportunity to have that conversation?
I've never been invited into a one-on-one conversation with President Trump. And I would welcome that opportunity. I have no idea how that would go. I can assure him and everyone listening that I would be as respectful as I would with any person, and certainly of his office, for which I have a great deal of respect. But the invitation would have to come from him.
Shocker, it's almost like she didn't want to have a one-on-one with Trump to express her concerns at all. It's almost like she wanted to put on a huge performance for attention with the assurance that the hacks and establishment media will do everything in their power to prop her up. I mean, it's a little amusing how these political hacks will do wall-to-wall coverage about Trump referencing God after being attacked, selling a Bible, or misplacing his hand during an oath. But don't see any double standard at play when this woman essentially turns her sermon into a TED Talk about a progressive agenda. But let me know what you think. How do you feel about this bishop? If you belong to a church, have you seen anything like this since Trump took office? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye!